Hi, welcome everyone. Sorry about a bit of delay. If you were here promptly, couldn't get this thing going. I want to say not only welcome, thank you for being here, whether you're new or returning to the channel. This is kind of an impromptu, another unexpected live. And it's called Giant Serpents, a little play on serpents of the seas and the earth. After the last live, which covered what is the shape of the earth, I got into looking at old cartography, medieval maps and such, and that led us into this topic of giant, serpents, mainly the kind that you find on these really old maps that they're out in the ocean. They're way bigger than the ships. So we're going to get into all kinds of fun here with it. Before we jump into that, I also want to say thank you if you have been with this channel, whether again you're new or coming back. If you've tried to comment and it won't take the comments, that's not me. That's this platform being silly. And so thank you if you've tried. I am quote unquote pretty much shadow banned on this channel. However, if you get through, consider it a fun thing. And I appreciate it when you still try to come in with comments. Okay, and also you can email me. I have the email in the description area below. If you do want to reach out to me, feel free to reach me that way if it's not happening down, in the comment area below. Well, this is quite a topic. I don't know if you've ever kind of gone down this path to look into these giant serpents and other kind of what they call quote unquote sea monsters of yore. But the more I was looking into this, the more fascinating things kept bubbling up to the surface, pun totally intended. So what I'm going to do is I have, as per like my last show, I have some, kind of tactile, physical things that I've collected over the years to look up and research information, in addition to finding things online and compiling, a little PowerPoint type presentation. And so here's the cover just to like mark it. This is where we're headed. And so I will be drawing from maps and lore and also kind of modern popular film and books. And, we're going to just wander all over the place like a serpent. We're going to kind of meander through. Now, if you can make it into live chat, feel free to come on in. If you want to talk about anything or chime in, I'll do my best to pick those up. If nobody comes in, that's fine too. There's a ton of material here to go over. So I will wander. That's a little disclaimer. And but in the meantime, I'll try to stay as structured as possible to move through this nice and concise. So I want to start off with a very old, going way back to Herodotus and the Histories. Okay, nice sizable book. Herodotus did record things, exploring lands far and wide. And that's a whole nother topic in and of itself. You can see it's pretty sizable. But I was just looking, for curiosity's sake, are there giant serpents mentioned in here? And yes, there are. Some things I'm going to go over, I'm just going to kind of leave them as like a drop and go for things that, if you're interested, that you might want to go explore on your own at a future time. So we got Herodotus going way back. We're going to get into other things going way back. I did get to Scotland. I didn't get to Loch Ness, where the Loch Ness quote unquote monster is, but I picked up a little book when I was there decades ago. And we have some images, of old images, as you can see on this side here. And this is interesting because I think one of the first sightings was like a friar or somebody, of the clergy who had seen this big, serpent-like thing come up out of the water. And what's interesting to note too is like over here is the north arrow is not up, it's east is up. And some of the maps really far back tended to do that. And I'll show some other examples of that. But anyway, I think this is probably what comes to mind the most for people in the Western world or Europe. You think of the Loch Ness monster. In North America, there's also the Ogopogo in the Canadian lake. I forget the name. Someone out there might remember or know that, but we'll get to that too. It's coming up in the show. So there are reports of these serpent-like, very large creatures. Some are, they say snake-like body. Some might have like a goat-like face or a pig-like face, a horse-like head. So many reports over time. As we go through, I'll go through some kind of popular cultural things. This is coming from a book, a children's book, actually. And it's showing, old Greek lore with a big, serpent-like thing. Now, when we talk about serpents and looking way back, the question might come up, well, what's the difference between a dragon? Are some of these things a dragon, not just a serpent? Well, there is a dragon called a worm, WYRM, and that is a very serpentine-like dragon with no wings and tiny legs or no legs at all. So there's a little bit of a, overlap of what the serpent is and the dragon. But for this show, we'll just consider it a serpent-like being. Could have dragon-like tendencies, but we'll just stick with kind of like a more snake or serpent-based thing. Now, that the etymology of serpent, if you look to ancient Greek, it means seeing sharp or having sharp sight. Sorry, so like seeing, really seeing or having sharp sight, which is interesting because the Latin etymology or word, forming the words for what we take to be serpent, tends to put it in a category of creeping, like creeping or crawling. So they're two very different, perspectives on the word serpent. And I like to break words down sometimes and combine languages. I enjoy languages, speak a few. So when I see serpent, you could break it down as SER, ser, and pent. And ser in Spanish is to be. And pent is to be pent up, right? Is to be kind of caged or whatever. So what's interesting is the behavior of some serpents, not all. I think I can't remember the scientific name. It's like cobra or colibra or something, of the type of class of snake that will rise up and, coil and then rise right up as if to strike when it's cornered. And I actually learned that the hard way with a non-venomous snake in Florida. This little innocent, not innocent, but this little, not so little. I need to go back up a bit. There was a black snake. For me, it was sizable. For someone else, it probably was a joke. But it was maybe, 3 feet long, had a girth. I can't think of, like, I don't know, like this big around. For me, that's a big snake. Anyway, when I was much younger, I had a bigger fear of snakes. Now I have a better time with them, but being around them. However, I'm talking like the animal, not people, or snakes. But anyway, a little humor here. But anyway, this snake was out on the front door. I opened it up and I was like, the typical, eek, it's a snake. And I wasn't expecting it. So I did have a jump scare. And so I had a broom and I thought I would just kind of like not touch it, but, corral it away from the door. And instead it just like went up and I'm like, okay, you win. I dropped the broom and ran inside. Yes, I did. Now in my older years, I've been working in the yard and have had other encounters with non-venomous snakes, black racers and all kinds. And, but anyway, those still do jump scare me. But I've learned to, instead of just go like, and be in terror and totally run away, once like the immediate like vicinity, they're out of my range. I have learned to just really observe the snake as it's traveling through the grass, feel the energies of it. If it has no negative intent and it's just trying to make its way, away, I've learned to really look at the face. And it's funny because you can even feel like a nurturing energy coming off of it. It's pretty fascinating. So I have kind of overcome that fear. However, we're talking non-venomous. Of course, we've got the venomous. And that's a whole nother story. But what I do want to just say on that note is, it's amazing how where, venom, there's, anti-venom. And so what is the toxin can also be converted, transmuted, and made the cure. So that's just a little message today. And as I said, I'm going to jump all around. Speaking of messages and going to the spiritual side of things, I have a piece of, it's called serpentine. It's a crystal. I don't know if you can see the color too well. This is not polished, so I don't have a little water to dip on here and show you the true color, but it's a light green. Serpentine is a magnesium silicate mineral, and it can come more greenish, yellowish, or brownish. So that's just a little tip of the day if anybody's into crystals and you want to look that up. Serpentine goes with our little topic of serpentine, serpent-like, right? Okay, so let's go back to, I want to bring up, I don't want to get too much out of order, so let's do this. Let's still stick with something. I'm going to show you my tactile props, and then I'll get into the paper slides. Okay, so with Star Wars fans, I'm one on this channel. I just wanted to bring up serpents. They're in our culture. They're in lore from way back. In modern culture, the first thing we see, and spoiler alerts if you are into any of the, want to see any of these movies and haven't, the one of the opening scenes in the desert on Tatooine, there's a huge skeleton, and it's a huge serpent. When you get to, I forgot my other little DVD, but when you get to the newer, this is episode 4, A New Hope in Star Wars, that's where you see it. Then there's another snake-like thing, which I'll get to in the slides. Then when you get to episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, there's a huge serpent in there too, more cobra-like, and underneath the quote-unquote sinking fields. So there's something about the theme of serpent. They mean very different things in each of the movies, but I've been doing a little hint drop series for shorts where I'm, going into some of these movies and pulling up things that have either spiritual significance or just kind of things that make you go, what is going on? There's something I'm supposed to remember about this. What is it? Just something that kind of nags at you a little bit. And actually, it's funny I use the word nag because naga is the word for snake. I think a root word for it in India. All right. So anyway, there's Star Wars. The snake theme comes up. I'm going to get to it too in the slides. Tattoos. People are doing the full sleeve of artwork and all these things these days. It has most of your, traditional tattoo artwork has that, kind of like a serpentine tribal feel to it for a reason. There's something deep encoded in our memories about the snake. Not all snakes are evil, if we even take it to the galactic sense of reptilians or whatever. Not all have to be sinister. There are good ones, benevolent ones out there as well. And same thing with each animal, right? Each has a different temperament. Some are at ease, some are, a little on edge. And it's like, good lesson to read the room whenever we approach any of these things, right? Anyhow, I want to bring up let me stick with more of the PG realm of things, kid movies. Another movie, actually, it's a Jim Henson Creature Shop creation on this. And it's kind of referring to the Ogopogo, the Canadian, water horse type idea. And that's the face they use. And this movie was called Me, She. I don't know if many of you have heard of it. It was a little obscure when I had, found it and watched it. But anyway, it's showing that the Loch Ness type monster is very friendly and benevolent, right? Some of the Native American, I guess, and do look into this further on your own. And plus, if you know more, feel free to chime in and let me know in the comment section or email if the chat's not working. But anyway, apparently, the Ogopogo is a Loch Ness type creation that is a guardian of the lake and maybe of like the salmon and whatever else. So they have a role, right? So there's a lot of debate. Well, do they exist? Do they not? I say it's very possible. I don't see why some of these like deep supposed glacier deposit or carved lakes wouldn't have tunnels and different cave-like systems that could sustain, this type of creature or being, I should say. And also, we're talking about different dimensional things happening now. We're talking about a shift on the planet on this channel where we're going more from the 3D material, like physical materiality side of things to a shifting and ascending to being a more true spiritual being, maybe a light being, which is less physical, which does allow us to kind of move through dimensions. So maybe there was a time back in the 1300s and prior where you see some of these creatures and things, again, I say creatures, but I mean beings showing up on maps. Who's to say they weren't there? They were ubiquitous on all of these maps. You see these here, I guess I should get into the slides too. These old time maps, and this map alone I hope that's focusing okay. Sorry, I'm not on my game. It's like 1 a.m. I didn't plan on doing this, so I'm a little bit not as sharp as I should be. But anyway, we've got, serpents here. We've got other ones capsizing boats. We've got another one here. We've got like 2 approaching this ship. I mean, they are all over the place. And this is I think called the Carta Marina by a Swedish cartographer. And this is just filled with tons and tons of sea creatures. And they're all like attacking and doing whatever. Now, AI will tell you that, this is the earliest map where you see these kinds of creatures. But no, there's one in the 1300s that has them too. And even more unexplainable kinds of creatures to our, modern knowing there's like no explanation. Now back to what I was talking about, different dimensions though. The Irish culture, they were very in touch with nature, with nature spirits, with fae people, elves, fae, all kinds of, creatures in the woods and in the waters. And so why were they seeing all of this? An entire country is just not hallucinating these things. So, and you have the tales of the dragons, and then in the UK, the Beowulf story. Do we think all these people are just completely making up dragons that have a lot of the same descriptions? You look at the Welsh flag, there's a red dragon on it. You look at, the royal house. I don't know if it's Windsor or whatever the heck it is in the UK, but it's on the one side of the shield, you've got a lion. On the other side, there's a unicorn. We're talking about beings that people just kind of write off as, oh, that's mythology. I think we're entering a time now, again, as we shift less, being entrenched in the 3D world and moving more into a spiritual one toward the 5D realms and above, heavenly realms. We are starting to see and shift in our sight, our actual sight. We're starting to see deeper, and we might get glimpses of it, whether we're conscious or in our dream state. And we're also getting an inner knowing if we start getting kind of activated, divinely activated into remembering, connecting back with our inner knowing. It's that same kind of inner knowing as when you were little, you just felt like you could fly, or, you have dreams of flying. And that we're just starting to move into a time that's less dense, and that we're getting cosmological things happening. Cosmic energies are coming in to help spark us and kind of reconnect us with our inner divine spark and remember some of these things and know them to be true. So we're coming out of, not only coming into a great remembrance, but we're also shedding, like the snake sheds all of the deception and the illusory world and the lies that we've been told, and the programming and the conditioning, to all designed to make us forget who we really are and to suppress our power and try to strip us of our innate God-given power, which is there. So anyhow, let's move on. But before I do here, I just spliced together, this is that same map I just showed you before. But in here, we've got big dragon, like snake, sea serpent here. And then we've got more stuff happening in here and this one here. So, what would the purpose be to riddle this map with sea creatures galore? Don't you think that a cartographer would rather spend their time like faithfully documenting the land masses? I think, did they use creative license and add a lot that weren't there? Maybe. But the point is, I think they're all different types. It's not like someone just put the same sea creatures, same color everywhere. So I don't know. I believe that not all sailors are drunk and captains are drunk when they're reporting some of these sightings going back, 1300s and before. I think there's, people out there and they were seeing stuff, and they are, recording some things of what they were experiencing. And there's just too much in the lore and in the mosaics. And we go to the Greek mythology here. We've got the Laocoon. It's a very famous sculpture here. I forget the exact story, but that's one of those things I'm dropping for you to look into further if you like. But that's the whole story where he's this guy, he's, I think, on a boat, and he has his two sons. And somehow, what happens in all the Greek mythology? Somebody pisses off the gods and goddesses. And so they sent these big snakes to, attack them, right? So anyway, and then we've got something that looks, it's serpentine. It's a dragon, more like dragon-like serpentine type of thing in a mosaic. We've got, this is just an example of tattoos, modern day tattoos. People are, they like the lore of the sea dragon, the sea serpent. And then down here, I just posted a shorts from Aquaman from 1967. And one of the episodes has a big sea serpent, sea dragon-like thing battling a giant squid, right? So it's in our lore. This is like in our genes, so to speak, where whether it's Greek mythology or, something more modern, the theme of the serpent, the giant serpent, serpent/dragon keeps coming up, right? So that brings me to some questions also. I like this like I said, I'm going to jump around a bit. I like the title of this children's book. It's called Tales of the Cryptids, Mysterious Creatures That May or May Not Exist. And then in there are including some like plesiosaurus type things, sea creature type things too. And I like that though, because they may or may not exist. I think we're in a window of time where they haven't existed. I think prior, there was a window of time where they did, where you're seeing unicorns or narwhals or things that are detailed, illustrated way, way back. Again, were these people just like hallucinating using extreme fantasy? I believe that they were in the presence of, maybe some heard about some of these beings and just drew them from, what the hearsay. But I'm pretty sure others had glimpses of them that, again, some of these images are just so pervasive all through culture. Anyway, part of the reason why I'm also going down this sea serpent path is I happened to watch this a long time ago, this little British series called Sanditon. Okay, I think it's based on a Jane Eyre novel. Anyway, in this one, this TV series, it caught my attention because we're talking like Victorian era, or what is it called, Regency era, UK. And I don't want to, again, spoiler alert, it takes place in this little seaside town, and they're trying to drum up business and get people to come and make it like a bathing type thing and a spa. And so anyway, what caught my attention is they're building this town and they're just starting to kind of add onto it. And one of the main characters is talking with people, and every time they go to a certain area of the town, let me just see, in the background, like this is on a platform between two guys' legs, you see a poster, and you see this poster up on the wall, plastered like on this, where everyone would come and see, I guess, the town news. And it's talking about this giant Leviathan. It says Leviathan down here. And then it's talking about this huge serpent. And what's very interesting is it's even talking about this giant serpent, these bones. Sorry, this is the image they were using, appearing at a fair. So it just really reminded me too of the hype and the craze of getting people to go and watch these things in fascination. And again, we're talking about people are, being given this image, this kind of fearsome image of this thing in the water, right? So anyway, in this little series, it brings up the topic of bathing machines, which I only heard about these from watching this Sanditon series. And the more I looked into it, here you have these little, they look like cabana little houses on these wheels. And then these horses, drag this cart, the women would go up in there, change, leave their clothes there, and then exit out kind of into the water. And they had people you could hire called dippers. So if you're a female, you would have female women who would, be in the water and take your hand down and make sure you're steady. But I don't know. This just kind of hit me. They say that these bathing machines were done in the name of modesty and like being decent and not, being indecently clad, going to the water, that you needed privacy. But I don't know. I have to think that this lore and some of this was still kind of like probably scaring some people, that they didn't just want to go out in open ocean, because otherwise the human instinct when you see a body of water like the ocean is just to like run into it, even if you're not going to swim far. And the fact that they had not only this cart, this house on it, and like a couple of horses and people, I don't know. I just think it was kind of like, this is just my sense, I could be totally wrong, could be only about a decency, modesty situation. But I gotta think there was so much fear built up over what is in the sea that this kind of was like a little bit of an armor, like I feel safe if I'm on this cart, in the ocean. Just my personal opinion. Anyway, that's an interesting topic too. The whole psychology of the water. I think we all know very well what happened with one of my least favorite movie directors with the initials SS, who did Jaws, because it's all about fear, fear sharks. Look what that did to my generation and people, I guess, a little bit ahead and behind, fearing to even go in the water, fearing to go in a swimming pool. I mean, so a lot can be done psychologically. And I guess, in this era, everything talking about sea monsters, I just think personally would have probably really got people thinking, do I really want to go in that ocean? And the reason why I'm bringing that up too is I only found out the other day from some kind Australian friends. Shout out to those of you, if you are here, you know who you are. That apparently daylight bathing was banned in Australia between 1838 to 1902. Now, I was looking around on the internet, and of course it says, well, it was because of modesty and, couldn't show the men folk, the women going in and vice versa. And so I guess they let some people go in at certain hours and at nighttime. But come to think of it, that's the worst time to go into the ocean is at nighttime with things feeding. But anyway, that's a heck of a long time for a ban to be in place. That's 64 years. So I got to think there's something a little more to it. And I don't know what the answer is there. So if any of you know, please, by all means, let me know. I just thought that was very curious. Was that also kind of a fear thing? Maybe there were things in the water to really worry about. Maybe there were remnants of some of these creatures, these unexplained creatures. Who knows? I got to believe it had to do a little bit more than quote unquote modesty. But, prove me wrong. I welcome it, or not even prove me wrong. But let me know if anybody knows what's going on with that. Is that just another kind of Jaws psychology thing lasting 64 years, or was something else taking place? Again, I feel like we're kind of going through these shifts, and, again, the more open that we become and we kind of ascend, like our collective consciousness is moving from, we don't want a planet with evil people and people killing people. We want to move into something that's more beautiful, loving, and harmonious. As we move into these higher and lighter dimensions, I think, yes, we're going to start open up and see some of these things that probably other people could see way, way back because they were more open too. And then we had this period of oppression, which ruined it. And I think we're coming back into, hey, we're busting out of that. We're busting out of this quote unquote matrix. The lighter and freer we get, we're going to be embracing and seeing things. Already things in the fairy realm. A lot of people increase, are seeing more and more of those things. Look at all the people seeing now UFOs and other things because they're on higher and different frequencies. And so we're starting to catch up and see some of these things again. It is fantastic. So anyway, that's, again, all of this is my take, is what I'm presenting on this channel. Okay, so now let's look at, sorry, there's just so much to cover. Let's continue with kind of like the pop culture stuff. So we looked at Sanditon. Now this is two different cartoons. You may or may not be familiar with them. So the top two images are, and I hope you can see this. So I'm trying to see through backlit here. So this is the Unagi in the Avatar, The Last Airbender, the little cartoon series from, was it 2005? I think it started. Anyway, there's, big serpent-like creature, and it even kind of like does a whirlpool type thing. And the Avatar, the little last airbender, he's very spiritual, and this thing was threatening a town. And so he came to kind of, relax it. And then, he basically calmed it down and it all was well. And then down here we have a scene based on How to Train Your Dragon, if you know that cartoon movie. Anyway, on this side, here's this little Viking dude, and he's in his little ship. And again, that's a whole nother thing. We know that some of these Viking ships had dragon heads or serpent heads, right? Here's like, you just see the hump of a sea serpent, and, it's the famous thing where it like does a drive-by or flyby, the person doesn't see it, and then lo and behold, bam, it pops up out of the water, right? So in this case, this character in this little series is called the Skaldrin. So anyway, just bringing up where, we see it in everywhere, the imagery. So here we'll go to Star Wars. This is A New Hope. And this is the opening, in the desert scene. We have C-3PO. And he at one point is standing right next to this thing. I have a shorts clip of it if you want to see it on my channel. And he's standing there so you get an idea of the size of how massive this thing was. And it was a great technique back in the day because this movie came out in 1977. And it's like, holy crap, what this must have been, right? Very clever technique just to show you the bones, because it leaves the viewer a lot of room to kind of fill in the blanks, like what must that have looked like, right, when it was alive? And then we have the Dianoga, and that was the serpent-like thing that was in the trash compactor scene. Again, if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, this is Star Wars A New Hope, Episode 4. And if you know it, you know it. And the walls start moving in, and then this Dianoga releases the grip on Luke. goes along its way. Now, I thought this thing was just a snake, and then the eyeball thing popped up out of the water, looked around, but it's really a part of a bigger thing. So the Wikipedia shows, that it has lots of snake-like, appendages, and tentacles, but it's kind of slightly something else. But we'll just say serpent-like, because before I saw this, I just thought it was like a big long snake there and the trash compactor. Okay. Anyway, now we'll jump ahead to, that was episode 4, of Star Wars. This is episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. We have the key, protagonist, Rey, and she encounters this cobra-like thing, and it's called, I think, a Vexus, with a V, Vexus. I believe that's what they call this thing. And it's very cobra-like. And I think somebody posted she originally was supposed to fight this other thing, I guess was more python-like. But anyway, she encounters this thing below some quicksand, and there's tunnels underneath and all of that. But the imagery here is definitely kind of a fearsome snake. However, she, much like that last Airbender example, steps in, has a spiritual connection, to calm the creature, showing, emoting that she's good, it's all good. And the creature was very upset because it had been attacked and had some lacerations. And she comes in and shares her life force energy and heals it. So anyway, so we have a very healing message, with the snake. And again, a lot of healing properties are associated with the snake, not just, toxins in the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay, let's do a few more movies and things, and then we'll go into a slightly different venture with it. So here is, okay, here's somebody's depiction of a were-worm, and this would be in the Lord of the Rings lore. And I think in The Hobbit, it was in The Hobbit where were-worms were mentioned. So again, this would be dragon, serpent kind of combination. And then in The Hobbit, they took what could have been more like this, I think was the original intent of what it should look like. And they made these kind of more like earthworms busting out of the mountain type thing. And that's also used in the movie Dune. Okay. So again, a lot of this kind of tubular, serpentine, whether it's a true more like earthworm massive thing or more like snake-like, that's in the lore. And actually even in, I think it was in the Hobbit. Wait, was it in The Hobbit? Yeah, Smaug is there. And there's an interaction with Bilbo Baggins, and he's trying to, flatter Smaug and, appeal to that side of him so he doesn't kill him. So Smaug doesn't kill Bilbo. But also it's made known that you don't call the dragon a worm. It's like an insult. It's like calling a little one in preschool a baby. They don't like being called a baby, even though they're like maybe 2 years old. They don't like being called the WYRM because that's saying like they don't have wings, they don't have legs. It's like an insult. Anyway, that was said in the movies. Okay, now here I'm just we touched on it already. The Ogopogo in the Canadian lakes somewhere. Again, I can't remember the name of the lake at the moment, but this is just an artist's depiction of one, because that's supposed to have a very gentle nature. Some of these, I guess, have an aggressive reputation, and others, very gentle guardians. And this is just, again, that Mishi example. And then down here is just a Ogopogo in a park, made out to be some kind of like a child, play area. I think you can walk around and climb, the sculpture. And there are a lot of examples of these sea serpent sculptures. I think I saw one in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. If you look that up, there's just this huge one. And then also I've seen interesting topiaries that are made to look like the humps, of the serpent. So anyway, again, there can be very positive energies around these things. And of course, the opposite end of that, very aggressive ones. Then, much like the last show, talking about what is the shape of the earth, we get into, the Norse mythology in quotes, talking about the different levels and different realms, the 9 realms. We have the great tree, Yggdrasil, and then we have Asgard at the top and Midgard, somewhere down here, sorry, is down here. And then we've got like a big serpent, at the bottom, the eagle at the top, the squirrel that runs up and down and gives messages, wrong messages to keep a little fight going. His name is Ratatoska. And anyway, I'm just bringing it up because This is showing imagery of a great serpent below Midgard, which is supposed to be Earth. And this is going to be important coming up in a few slides from now. And we have the imagery again of this, I think it's called Ouroboros, or Boros, is the great serpent eating its own tail. And that's just a logo around the great tree Yggdrasil. And then over here is another depiction of that snake would be coming around, land. And then here I enlarged it and kind of bleached out so you can see that's that snake going around, right? So that imagery comes up time and time again. Actually, I even have it here. Wait, do I have it here? Hang on. In Oracle deck and some Oracle decks, I have the Animal Spirit Oracle deck and the Mystical Shaman Oracle deck here, just to show a few things. I'll go out of order. So here we go. Here's the sea serpent, and the serpent, eating its tail. Some cultures and descriptions will say that that's a depiction of there being no time, that things are just eternal. There's no beginning and end when the serpent is, has its own tail. And then we have interesting imagery too, the cosmic egg. We've got the serpent about the cosmic egg. I do want to read that maybe later. If I don't get to it, I'll put it down in the description area below. But a lot of imagery, a lot of detailed explanation of what this symbolizes. So I highly recommend you also do your own research of what that means. And then, here's just another from the same deck. There's just so much emphasis and importance on this symbology, okay, in a cosmic level. So this came from the Animal Spirit Guidebook book deck, sorry. What is this? This is Kim Krantz. I forgot her name. Yeah, so that's that coming from there. And then I might as well hop into this other one. This is coming from the Mystical Shaman Oracle. It's actually a really nice, beautiful deck, beautifully done. And here we have again the snake, the Ouroboros, getting its own tail there. And then we have the medicine wheel. And actually, there's a really beautiful description, too, of how this works. I think I will read this one. I'll pause and read this now because there's nice meaning to this. So if you see the imagery, we've got the serpent at the bottom to the south. And then I'm bringing up these two cards. They didn't have one that was just rainbow serpent. So they have rainbow and serpent separate. But I just did that as a reminder to me to bring it up. There are a lot of cultures that talk about the rainbow serpent. I think in Mexico, I think the Hopi speak of it too. And that I'm not going to go into, but I am going to leave that as a little thing to entice you to look in on your own further if you want to research that. Okay, so now we will go to, I will read the medicine wheel if I can find it quick enough. Yeah, here it is. So this is a nicely done book. Again, this is that mystical shaman or shaman oracle. And let me just read this because it really is nice. Okay. The other nice thing about this is it's broken up into a few parts: the essence, the invitation, and the medicine. And the medicine is usually when the card is in reverse. And that's just, what you can do to remedy the situation. So I'm going to go ahead and read it off camera, just because it's kind of hard to show it and read it at the same time. So this says, the medicine wheel is a sacred hoop with the 4 cardinal directions well marked. It represents the cycle of life, the cycles of nature, and the circular pattern of our cosmos. It has been used for millennia in indigenous cultures to bring harmony and well-being to the village. Its directions symbolize the 4 steps the shaman takes to become a person of power and wisdom. The invitation. To manifest clear blue skies in your life, it is important that you take a look at certain aspects of your being. Enter the medicine wheel from the south and reflect on how you are still clinging to events from the past. Continue to the west and notice which relationships are toxic and drain your energy. Step into the north and ask yourself, do I know my passion and show it? End at the east direction, visualizing how you want to live the next chapter of your life. It is up to you how much time you spend in each direction, minutes, days, or months. But when you are done, make sure to step outside the wheel and contemplate your journey. Okay, let's see. And then the medicine, I might as well read it. You must not postpone your healing journey any longer. It can be difficult to start, but you must find the inner strength to step into the medicine wheel, or you may lose your opportunity. There are many ways and many paths. Choose the one you resonate most with. Once you have found it, the only mistake you can make is not to follow it. Go boldly. And what I like to say too is there are no mistakes, and anything that is maybe perceived as a mistake, it's just a stepping stone to grow. It's just another rung on the ladder. And whatever that rung looks like, beat up or brand new, it doesn't matter. They're just experiences. Okay. Anyway, so that's a little bit from the Oracle deck side of it. Again, showing we've got this pervasive snake, serpent energy, imagery, okay, everywhere. And then this was interesting. Almost done with the slide portion. Then I just have a few comments to make, observations. So also, when I was like entrenched in looking at maps and looking at things on the shape of the earth for the last show, I came upon this. So this down here is called the Hereford. Oops, over here. Hereford Mappa Mundi. So some people say, oh, it means world map, Mappa Mundi. But Mappa really meant like cloth or something else. So this map is supposedly from, this one, from 1300 or early 1300s, I guess. And it's on a calf skin. And it's like 5 foot by 4 foot. And notice it has a ring, around this whole thing. Now, somebody looked at this and did a, little kind of more graphic depiction of how this is not how all of our land masses look right now. And yet doing it 1-to-1 translation, that's what it did. And again, I'll post some of these things, either links to where I found these things, or maybe I'll do in my post section, I'll, post some of these images. Anyway, this is also somebody's rendition of the big great snake going around the cosmic egg. Anyway, just they all seem to relate somehow. Now, I did just post a video showing this map on my channel. I put 2 videos, and they break it down because there's all kinds of crazy, in a good way, fantastical monsters and creatures and beasts all shown throughout these lands. And the link, or the thing that I posted, really does a great job of breaking down each being and explaining what they are, what they look like, and everything from off of this 1300 map. So anyway, just again, interesting things. I had never heard of that map until the other day, and it's fascinating. You could just spend probably a lifetime analyzing that thing. The more you look at it, you'll see what I mean, if you go look at it in more detail on your own. All right, so now I want to get to something that also came up to my attention probably just a few days ago. And again, I want to thank the kind person who brought it to my attention from Australia, or not exactly Australia, but close. But anyway, here. So this, I think, is circulating on Facebook a lot and the internet. So over here we have, let me do this right. Okay, give me a moment. Yeah, okay, so we have the edge of Argentina and we have the edge of Antarctica, and we have this thing moving through it. So this is one of the things on the internet that's going around. So you can just see there's shadow around here. And yeah, okay, I'm in the right place. And this just from above just looks like a massive dragon head or serpent head coming down. Now, somebody put in as a side by side what would be like the nose. To me, it's also almost like an alligator head. But down here, look at that. There's a big shadow. But what gets really curious are these like little diamond points. It's almost like somebody put little rhinestone, little glittering diamond chips all in here. Now, they're at such a regular interval that I got to say there's some kind of intelligent design involved. So for me, I'm going to show you what this looks like as if we take it as an organic being, like rising to the surface or moving around. Or it could also be a collection of UFO or craft, and I'll show you why I say that in a minute. But for now, let's just look at it as we're looking at it with the glasses that is some kind of organic serpent-like or reptile-like being. I took the blue color out of it over here just to kind of maybe help people see it in a different way. This very much looks like an eye, a side cheek, a slight side view of an upper part of a mandible and the lower part. So this looks like maybe the nose, 2 holes. It very much looks like an ear here and here. So for me, it really does look very dragon-like. If I didn't see these little points, I would say, wow, it really is. But I'm not taking it off the table. I think it very much could be. I hope you could see that the whole time I'm doing this like backlit from the back. Um, it could be something very organic or something, again, like I've been talking about, something that we're shifting into a different dimension where something like that can exist. Maybe in like the 3D world, not so much. But now that we are growing and ascending as a collective, our consciousness is getting lighter and looking to see more truth, to get rid of, dispel, the deception, get rid of oppression, and move toward a freer, happier, more beautiful world, a more heavenly like example. And as we do that, we're going to start seeing things. Even I think the Hopi and other prophecies talk about fantastical beasts and things that mythological, quote unquote, mythological creatures that shouldn't, quote unquote, be or aren't in our present world, we're going to start to see again. And if you look at things like I brought up in the last show about the shape of the earth, the book called The Smoky God, or Voyage to the Inner World, I think it's called, from the late 1800s is the actual account. In that book, they talk about, and I guess, spoiler alert, go back to my live 10 if you want to, see, I put it in the description area, the title of the book and the author. But anyway, that one talks about there being an inner earth and societies within there. And one of the keepers of the North Pole entrance to the inner earth supposedly said, we're keeping treasures and things for you on the surface world. So once you are ready, they will come back, to the surface world, meaning there could be birds and other kind of wildlife that took refuge into inner earth that will come back out at the right time as our collective consciousness evolves and ascends. Anyway, that's a whole nother direction, but it just reminded me of that. So here now, I want to look at this, what they're calling like a massive dragon or snake, underwater. And this is just Google Earth images. Let's see. Okay. So instead of the other one where we looked at it as maybe an organic being with spirit to it, now I want to take a look at it as actually, what am I doing here? Okay. We're going to look at it as both in this one slide here. So here I took all the blue color out again, just to maybe so you can see it in a different way. If you can see more of the structure of the eye, and then like the nose, definitely looks like some massive dragon or serpent, great serpent head. So then this middle slide, I know it's a little dark, but I took green and I was just, kind of sketching over. And this one I will put on the post to my post section of my channel, because then you'll see it better than this. It just printed out too dark. But anyway, I put green around just to trace around to show it as if it is the, more of the dragon serpent organism, actual like sentient being. Now over here, and I'll post this also to the post section of my channel, I have red lines, and I don't think they're really coming up. Maybe you can see it a little. Where we have more of like a diamond shape here and some rigid geometries that look like they're maybe just sitting on top of this thing. So who knows? Is it more organic and it's a being? Are there like UFOs on here? The only reason why I'm bringing up is, again, these little points at the bottom were so regularized. Here's another view of that. It just looks like lights of a city, or, maybe these are lights on top of a craft. I mean, look at them. I mean, they're just too regular and too intelligent to be something, I think, that are perched on like a giant serpent or dragon. Doesn't mean it can't be, but I don't know. I just think there might be craft sitting on top of another giant being or something. Or maybe this whole thing is a collection of intelligent, UFO type craft underwater, or USO, unidentified submersible objects that are sitting on top of this thing to look like a organic being. I don't know, but it's just good to food for thought on it. And also, it might not just be like little lights lit up there. This is zooming in even further on those little points, and they have shadow to them. So they look like structures. So I don't know what's going on here. What do you think? As always, I put it out there. See what you guys think. I think there are many possibilities. Maybe it's not an either or situation. Maybe everything's involved at once, like I said. Maybe it's like UFO type craft sitting on top of some kind of organic being, almost like those remoras that kind of cling onto a shark and they all ride together in harmony. I don't know. See what you think. All right. I think, just going to bring up maybe one more thing. I know I'm forgetting a lot of stuff, but I get a pass. It's late. Maybe two little things before I sign off, unless anyone else has anything they want to bring up that I can see that doesn't get blocked for crazy reasons beyond my control. Three things I'll bring up too, just touching on the serpent theme and all of that. I think when I brought up the whole Jaws thing, creating like terror and people didn't go in the water, and maybe something like that was created in the 1800s, and prior to 1902 or 3, whatever it was for Australia. Maybe it was just like a whole fear porn panic situation. People don't want to go in the water. Something like that supposedly did happen off of San Francisco in the prison of Alcatraz back in the day when it was a functioning prison. They supposedly made sure that any library didn't have any books about behavior of sharks and their everything to do with, great white sharks. They didn't want the prisoners to know anything about it and just keep them in the dark. And they would kind of fan the flames of fear, saying, oh, the sharks are really big and they're great whites are going to get you at every turn. Like, don't even try, to swim and get away or, create a way to get away. So I know that was done as kind of like psychological terror, done to the prisoners so that they didn't even try to escape. Aside from the cold water that they could have had hypothermia, but more than that, they're just, trying to really scare them not to try to leave the island. If you don't know what Alcatraz is, that's another thing you might want to look up the history of it. And then another like snake related thing, I'm Florida based. So if you're a Floridian, you may know how the rise of the pythons in the Everglades, there weren't any. And they came in as somebody brought the first one, I think back in the 80s or just prior. And they have multiplied like crazy. And the thing is that they lay over 80 plus, and maybe to 90 eggs in one sitting, so to speak. So I don't know how many survive out of those 80 eggs, but clearly enough do that it's been a real problem in the Everglades. So what's been happening is they're overrunning things, and they don't have enough predators to take them out quickly enough. So the mammal population is extremely at risk because you've got anything from rats, possums, little key deer, they can take those out. And of course, anything else that they want to eat, turtles, fish, whatever. So it's really kind of throwing the ecosystem out of balance, has been for a long time. So in recent years, they have held hunts. I mean, I'm usually not a fan of hunts of anything, but just to kind of balance out the population, they have people going in, they're offered rewards to go in and like dead or alive, get these pythons out. And apparently it's just very slow going because people can only like hand pick up like one at a time. And they're just so many, and they're very elusive. They are totally suited to hiding in the water, or they do well on land. So it's like their perfect habitat. So that's just a little FYI if you haven't heard of that situation going on in Florida in the Everglades. And I know they have a few documentaries about it. I think supposedly the story goes that the first tip off that anybody had that there was being a real problem of a lot of mammals disappearing, the food chain disappearing, and the eco balance, out of whack, was, I think, one of the universities, they put a transmitter on a rat or something, and it was more than a rat. I can't think of what animal it was, but anyway, rat-like animal. And they were tracking it for some other study, nothing to do with snakes. And they were like, wait a minute, this little rat normally has its habitat just in this little radius, circle. And then they noticed that like rat thing had traveled, miles upon miles away from where it normally would live. And that's when they found it in the stomach of a python. Then that's when they were onto it, that there was a big problem. Anyway, that's how the story goes. And I'm pretty sure that is correct. It's a true one. So anyway, that's just that. I'm bringing that up since that affects what's going on here where I live. I don't know. Maybe it's worth it to see what types of serpents and things are where you live. I know they also in Florida introduced the eastern indigo snake. And that was a release on purpose because I think apparently those will eat venomous snakes. And so, at a certain point, we get into the old Hawaiian story where they brought the mongoose in to kill the snakes. Then there was an overrun on mongoose. Like, We got to really look at things anew, I think, these days of what's introduced. I think in Europe, in some places, they're introducing the wolf again. And I don't know, I have a little bit of a, you know, not a reservation, but it's like, I don't know, I get a big caution flag when those types of things are done, when quote unquote humankind is trying to reintroduce species. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I'll leave it like that. Also, I'm going to skipping all over the place. I just put notes so I wouldn't forget anything. It's nothing vital, but again, with the imagery going way back, we have the snake in the Greek mythologies. We have the modern medical symbol of the caduceus is the two intertwining serpents, and then they're on a pole with the wings, which can be representing a lot of things depending on how esoteric you want to go with this. That can be the symbol of Mercury. It can also be a symbol of the pole itself of the earth. It can be Kundalini energy. It can be DNA strands. It can be a lot of things. But what's interesting is it's very reminiscent of Medusa, medical Medusa, right? Actually, Medusa is like medical USA, if you think about it. The Greek figure with the snakes and the hair. So again, and then we get into talking about what's a toxin and what's a cure. And can the toxin be converted to be the cure when you're talking about venom and anti-venom? So we get a lot of interesting things there. And again, I'm just dropping this as food for thought for everyone if you want to take it and run with it, or just that's enough, And then I had one more thing I was going to bring up, I think. Let's see if I see it right off the bat. If not, it's not that important. Oh, one thing, just as a little aside, and maybe a great way to wrap this whole thing up, and actually looking at the time, it's perfect timing for that. Is that we are moving from, I think it's the year of the snake, I think the wood snake, and we're moving into the year of the fire horse, according to the Chinese zodiac or calendar, and that will begin in February. So it's just fitting. I was like, why am I even bringing this whole show up about serpents? Because it was clearly the year of the snake back then, but it's not technically over. So I think this thing wanted to rear up its head to talk about it before we move on into the horse energy. And so anyway, those are just my scattered across everywhere thoughts and just things I was kind of delving into. I'm sure you out there have some equally or even more fascinating aspects of all of this. Hopefully it brought up some things, again, food for thought. I like to bring up these things as a springboard that might take you off into some fun, interesting directions. And again, all of it's done in a very positive spirit, no fear with any of this stuff. So even when I talk about, we might see some of these mystical things in our future popping up if we, move into the right frequency where we match up, no fear there. There's not going to be anything that can, quote unquote, take you out. And even if this ever comes to pass and these prophecies come true and we start to see some of these things again, I don't think it's going to be any different than, we're dealing with snakes and alligators and whatever else, wherever you live, crocodiles, it's just something that we know how to navigate, right? All right. Well, and use your intuition. Like if something's like, don't go over there, then don't go over there. That type of thing. All right. Well, as always, hopefully this was at least moderately enjoyable at the worst, and then really fun at best for you. I enjoy your presence here, even if I don't see you by name or anything. I feel your good energy, and I really appreciate you tuning in again, whether it's for this live or you catch it later. So tremendous peace and love to everybody. Blessings. Till next time. Lavender Sky Panther, Varleigh here. Bye.